This is Carrie Johnson with the Iowa Department of Management, and this is a brief webinar to provide submitters of the fiscal year 27 county hospital budgets with an overview of the process and some background information. I'll start off first with providing information regarding property tax levies and other general pieces of information for hospital budgets, and then I'll provide an overview of the submission process on the Department of Management's online forms. When working with Department of Management information, county hospitals would want to go to dom.iowa.gov, find the local government category, and go to other authority resources. And this is a good page to bookmark for a variety of different pieces of information you might find helpful. If you scroll down the page, you'll see a category called Property Tax Rate Data. Within this property tax rate data, you will see a category for county hospitals. This provides for several years an overview of each county's individual property tax rates, as well as their total rate and total dollars levied. This is a good resource if you want to look at historical information regarding property tax rates, or if you want to compare your particular hospital to others in the state. Department of Management's role is to provide the forms, including the web-based forms we'll discuss, instructions, and technical assistance for all local governments that submit budgets. And again, you might find that particular information regarding the rates helpful as you plan your budget timeline. As we look at the budget timeline, keep in mind that you must publish notice of a public hearing and proposed budget summary not less than 10, no more than 20 days prior to the date of the hearing. When we count dates, we count all days, not only business days. You will hold your hearing, which is when you accept comments from your public, either for or against your budget, and then your governing body will adopt your budget. You must certify your budget with the county auditor by April 30. Department of Management then compiles all local government budgets and certifies final tax rates back to the county auditor each year by June 15th. We also provide consolidated tax rates at this point. The county auditor prepares tax rates for the county treasurer by July 1, and then the county treasurer prepares tax statements for property owners that are due each year in September 30 and March 30. This page provides an overview of the property tax levies available to county hospitals in the state. The helpful piece of information regarding this particular page is it also does provide the levy limitation as well as the Iowa Code authorization. But I will take a few minutes now to go over each of these individually. General tax levy. So this is essentially the general tax levy that county hospitals use to fund the basic operation of the hospital. There are different categories of hospitals in our state. We have public hospitals, revenue hospitals, and memorial hospitals. Public hospitals have a general tax levy that is limited to a rate of 27 cents per $1,000 of valuation for those populations that are under 225,000. For public hospitals over 225,000, so for example, Polk County and Broadlawns, the rate limit is $2.05 per $1,000 of valuation. Public hospitals use this revenue for improvement, maintenance, and replacement of hospital. Revenue hospitals have a rate limit of $1.08 per $1,000 of value, and they use their general tax levy for operation, maintenance, and funded depreciation of the hospital. For memorial hospitals, which currently there is one in the state, they do not levy property tax directly. So that is the discussion of the sort of general fund or general levy available to hospitals. Again, this is the primary fund and it's used to fund the basic operations of the hospital. There are additional tax levies that are available to a hospital in particular circumstances. Hospitals do have a FICA rate and an IPERS rate available to them. There is no specific rate limit. It is limited to the amount necessary and also limited in purpose. In order to use the FICA or IPERS levy, your general fund rate must be at its maximum. And you do not show expenditures in the FICA and IPERS funds. If you must levy for FICA and IPERS, you must receipt the money into the FICA and or IPERS funds and then transfer to the fund with the salary expenditures, which would be the general fund. Hospitals also have an emergency tax levy. This is for an emergency that cannot be financed through the general fund. The statutory process is covered under Code of Iowa 24.6. When we talk about emergency, we're really talking about a financial emergency, not necessarily a natural disaster or something of that nature. The levy limit for an emergency tax levy is 27 cents per $1,000 of value. And the process of requesting an emergency tax levy is to include that emergency tax in the budget that is submitted for approval to your citizens and then approved by your board. You would submit your budget to the county auditor by April 30, but also would need to include this special form that references the need for the emergency tax levy. And it is Form 699. And if you find yourself in this situation, please contact me and I will provide that form for you. So, upon the certification of the budget by the county auditor, they would then forward that information to the State Appeal Board, which is a three-member body of the Director of Department of Management, the State Treasurer, and the State Auditor. What would occur with this situation is that your request for the emergency levy would be reviewed by the State Appeal Board. There may be questions answered and asked, that sort of thing. And then the State Appeal Board would render a decision on whether or not that emergency tax levy can remain in your final budget. If it does remain, then funds must be receipted into the emergency fund and then transferred from that fund into your general operations fund. Unemployment tax levy, this is available to hospitals as well, and it's to pay the cost of unemployment benefits, either the cost of the premium to participate in the plan or the cost of claims for unemployment. There is no rate limit. It is the amount necessary and again, very limited in the purpose. Ambulance tax levy, this is for purchasing, leasing equipment, equipping, maintaining, and operating ambulance services. It's only available for a hospital when when such services are not otherwise available. So if there's other providers in the county providing the service, then this would not be an option. The rate limit for the ambulance tax levy is 27 cents per thousand. Tort and other insurance tax levy. This is to pay the cost of tort liability, judgment, or any insurance necessary and prudent to the operation of the hospital. There is no rate limit and is the amount necessary and again limited in purpose to tort and other required insurance. Debt service tax levy is available for the payment of qualified outstanding debt that's payable by general obligation. There is no rate limit. It is the amount necessary and limited in purpose. Currently, there are no hospitals levying for general obligation debt. There are funds available for restricted and board designated funds. These do not have associated tax levies, but they are an opportunity for hospitals to set aside funds from depreciation for building improvements. But since the budget process requires you to account for all funds when you submit your budget, these do need to be documented within your budget forms, and money may be transferred from these funds to other funds by board resolution. Business property tax replacement. So, a number of years ago, businesses, so commercial, industrial, and also railroad property, received a particular business property tax credit. That credit was then done away with, and it was converted to simply a reduction of value or an assessment limitation for those types of property classes. And it was referred to at that point and moving forward as a two-tier assessment limitation, and then the state will provide a replacement of the loss of that revenue due to the loss of value to local governments. So you will want to review your documentation from the county treasurer for that two-tier replacement line item within your statements. You can review that. It was the first year was fiscal year 24. So you'd have a couple years to review what was actually received, 24 and 25, or maybe even review what's been received in 26 to better estimate your fiscal year 27 replacement revenue. And it would be reported under other non-tax revenue and replacement. Commercial and industrial, this is a program the state had to fund or provide replacement revenue to local governments due to the reduction of commercial and industrial value. And this process is being phased out over time. There are a few years left in the process for particular local governments. Department of Management has estimated future commercial and industrial replacements throughout the phase out. So you can take a look at this spreadsheet on our website for better information to help you estimate the potential receipt of revenues for 27. Homestead and military exemptions, these are value exemptions that have been put into place and are not funded by the state. House File 718 passed in the 2023 session of the Iowa General Assembly, and there is currently a homestead credit that does receive some funding from the state, but now there is also an additional homestead exemption, which is an exemption, a reduction of taxable value, and that's for individuals 65 and over. So for fiscal 26 and beyond, so obviously including 27, these individuals receive a property valuation exemption of $6,500. And again, there is no state replacement revenue for this exemption. Military exemption has been around for a significant number of years, but House File 718 increased the military property value exemption from $1,852 to $4,000 for fiscal year 25, so obviously including 27 and after. The military exemption, again, is not funded by the state. Just a reminder that the budget deadline, so the deadline for you to submit all required documentation regarding your fiscal 27 budget is April 30. And that needs to be submitted to your county auditor and to our online system. So we talked about the deadline, but there is an opportunity for action on your budget after that deadline. There is an opportunity for citizens to protest an adopted budget. Protesting a local government budget is covered under Code of Iowa, Section 2427. So, citizens and people affected by your proposed budget, the expenditure or the tax levy, or any item can appeal the budget by filing a petition. The number of signatures required to file a petition is determined as a percentage of the people that voted on the last governor's election. So, they can circulate and file a petition, and they need to file that with the county auditor's office by May 10th. So essentially your deadline is April 30th, and then they have 10 days to protest your budget. So they would file that document with the county auditor. The county auditor would verify the required number of signatures and then forward that protest document to the state appeal board. The state appeal board, again, is that three-member body. They would, upon receipt of a petition of this nature, they would then schedule a local public hearing on your budget to give opportunity to the protesters and to you as the local government body to discuss your budget and speak for or against the budget. Upon receiving that information, the State Appeal Board would issue a decision on your budget. They would either sustain the budget as you adopted it, or they could reduce the tax or the expenditure. Once you are within a budget year, there may be an opportunity or a need for you to amend that budget. And a budget amendment is required for any increase in the totals for funds. So, this is essentially once you adopt your budget, you adopt a certain level of expenditures for each of your funds. And if you find the need during the year to go above that adopted amount of expenditures, then you need to go back to the public and request permission to do so. The amendment must be effective before any of the expenditure amounts are exceeded. Budget amendments do require the same notice and hearing procedures as were required for the adoption of the original budget. So, notification needs to be published in a newspaper. You need to hold a local public hearing on that budget, and then following the public hearing, you would adopt the budget amendment. Budget amendments are also subject to protest. However, if a budget is amended after May 31st, there is likely not enough time for a hearing and for the State Appeal Board to render a decision on that protest by June 30. So, in that case, your amendment would be void. The amendment form is found online in the same online system that you use to adopt your budget originally. Essentially, you'd go to your current year budget and select the amend button. That would generate a form for you to use that would provide the document that's necessary to submit to your newspaper for publication. You can access instructions regarding budget amendments within the online amendment form itself, or certainly contact me and I can provide you with greater detail. So, we'll take a few moments now to go over the online budget system itself. If you've worked in the budget system before, the budget system for fiscal year 27 is very similar. If you've had access to the system already, that access to log into the system should transfer to this year. If you have someone new in your office that needs access, just let me know and I will provide them with the information on how to obtain an account ID and access the system. As you're working in the system, if you use a tab key during data entry, it does move between the cells. You can also use the arrow keys to move up and down and side to side. Just as a side note, the ending fund balances are produced by subtracting the sum of all expenditures from the sum of beginning balances and revenues. Again, for just navigation, as you move within a page, the cell that you're in is highlighted and the row and column shows a green highlight. As I mentioned earlier, the Department of Management's website is dom.iowa.gov, and the particular page that you would go to review your information and to access our online system is found under the Other Authority Resources. So that might be a good one to bookmark. When you're ready to work in the system, you would go to that Other Authority Resources page and find the segment of the page that says Online Applications. If you select the orange square beside Local Government Valuation and Finance System, that will provide you the access to the local government system itself. On the home screen before you log in, you'll see each county listed and their status. And what this is a way for you to quickly check whether or not your particular county has filed their valuations yet. If they've filed their valuations, then you will have the necessary property valuation numbers within your budget to set your tax rates. If the valuations are not filed, then that information is not yet provided. So to begin your budget, of course, you'd go ahead and log into the system using your Enterprise ANA account ID and password. If you have any problems with your password, you would need to contact the state service desk, and there is a link at the bottom of this blue square. So once you log into the online system, you'll see a general budget screen displayed in the middle, the new fiscal year 27 budget, as well as the current year budget and other recent budgets will be displayed. So for 27, in order to get into the budget, you click that edit icon so you can access the forms and enter the data you need. You can also view and as I mentioned before, amend your current year budget by clicking this button from this screen. Once you're inside the budget, you'll see tabs across the top, and that reflects the different pages and actually different funds of your budget. Data entered on all of these supplementary pages will populate to the hearing notice page and also the adopted budget summary page. When you're in a fund tab, you'll see that there are two tabs within each of those, and there is one for revenues and one for expenditures. It is important to mention too, as you work in your budget forms, you are required by statute to enter 3 years of data. So for the fiscal year 27, you're going to be entering your fiscal year 25 actual data for the year ended. You'll enter your fiscal year 26 budget data. Since we're in that current year, you would reflect any amendments, of course, or any major changes or updates that need to be re-estimated and reported within that column. And then, of course, you would enter your budget information as estimated for your fiscal year 27. Again, with valuations, those valuation figures are filed by your county auditor. They're due each year by January 1. Once those 2025 valuations are filed in your county, the fiscal year 27 valuation figures will populate in the budget forms. You don't need to do anything to prompt that to happen. Until valuations are filed, or if your county auditor has to go in and make a correction and unfiles valuations, you'll see this following notice at the top of your budget. And this is just to make sure that you understand that the whatever valuations, if there are any populated in the form, they are subject to change because the county auditor has put the valuations in an unfiled status. If you're seeing this notification and you have any questions, please contact your county auditor. So let's take a look at some of the pages of the budget. The adopted budget summary is where you would submit your tax request. So for each and every fund, whichever ones you are using, you would input here what you are requesting for tax dollars. The system, once there is value populated here, will then calculate your tax rate. As you work in the system, anything that is white is a situation where there's either a calculation in that cell or the data is being pulled from elsewhere. Blue cells are those that you can enter into. Once you're in the budget, you can also check errors. At any point, you can save your budget at any point, and please do that often so you don't lose data. And of course, you can print at any time. For the printing, you can print the full budget. You can print only the current tab you're working in. Once you propose your budget for publication, you can go back in and print only the publication notice. If you're in Google Chrome, you can obviously select your local printer as the print designation, and that would provide you with a hard copy of the document that you're looking at. You also have an opportunity to save to PDF for the destination, and that then gives you a chance to have an electronic version of the page or the budget, what have you, that you can save down to your machine, email out, etc. If you want to include any electronic or virtual information in your notice, there's a text box that provides a chance for you to include that information. Prior to publishing your notice, you do need to check the errors for your budget. The system will check some major statutory situations and make sure that those are not in error prior to proceeding with your budget process. If you get this red notification, you will see that you do have an error that you need to correct and you cannot move forward with your budget. In this case, it's telling you that the levy rate exceeds the maximum rate. So, for instance, if you were a hospital that had a levy rate of 27 cents per thousand, but your requested dollars resulted in you having a general fund levy rate of 30 cents, then you would receive an error at that point. When you are error-free, you can propose and publish your budget to obtain the budget hearing notice that you need to give to the newspaper to publish, and it will be in green and tell you you can proceed. When you get to the propose, publish, and proceed, you'll get a screen to enter the time, date, and place for your hearing for that regular budget hearing that you can give to the newspaper. Again, the system generates that notice that you give to the newspaper. You can print it off or you can save off a PDF version to forward to the newspaper. Following the public hearing, your hospital board can make allowable revisions. So you can hear the comments from your public, and if needed, the board can reduce the tax asking or reduce the expenditures. You can never ask for more tax or ask for greater expenditures than what you had published in the paper to be heard at your public hearing. So those kinds of revisions may be allowed, but otherwise you would not make any revisions and you would simply move the budget forward and adopt it. When you are in the system, you'd click that adopt button and you would enter the date that your board signed off on the budget and click adopt. Following that process, you would need to file documents with your county auditor. You need to provide them with the proof of publication that your newspaper gave you that proved that you printed your notice in a timely fashion in their newspaper. You also need to provide the county auditor with the signed adopted budget and supplementary pages. And these need to be provided to the county auditor by April 30. You can either provide them in a hard copy form, so mail them to the county auditor, hand deliver them to the county auditor, or you can upload the documents into our online system in lieu of delivering those hard copies to the auditor, and then the auditor can then go pull down those documents from the system for review. If you decide to upload the documents in this manner, please see the instructions at the end of your instructions document for a specific process. If you have any questions as you're working on your fiscal year 27 budget, please feel free to contact me. You can reach me either by email or by phone. Thank you.